Oh. Hi, everyone. Hi, Kate.
Hi, Holly. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks for inviting me in tonight. Looking forward to talking with you all.
Well, we're excited about it too, and I hope it's a good time of the semester to be talking about these things. I know last week can be stressful with so many assignments coming in at the end, but I think it'll be good. I'm hopeful that folks will get a lot out of it. I'm having to admit everybody because the way I set it up in a goofy way.
Oh, no.
I don't know why I did it that way.
Well, I'll just mute myself and you let me know once you're ready, once you do announcements and all of that, and I can jump in whenever.
Okay, I will.
Sounds great.
Okay, and I'll introduce you. You'll have to remind me what your new center is called, because I'll still call it Career and Academic Advising.
Yeah, University Career Center.
Okay.
Exactly. And I do have a PowerPoint that I just emailed to you that you can share on Canvas with students afterward. But
okay, great.
Is there a way you can also enable the screen sharing at some point, just so that I can share my screen later on?
Yeah. See how I can figure out how I can do that.
It should be, there's a little arrow button typically by the screen share, I think. And you should be able to click on that.
You need to change the settings in security.
Yeah, I see it.
Everyone's becoming Zoom experts these days.
I know, right?
Skills of 2020 that we didn't expect.
Actually, under security, yeah, I just said allow participants to share screen. So you should have the ability to do that, Kate.
Looks great.
Okay. I have 1 minute to go. So I have a whole bunch of people to admit. Hold on. This class has been asynchronous all semester, except for when we had seminars. So things aren't intuitive, in the virtual world as they have been for the students in class who've been student teaching all this time, and things have just become automatic for them. I have to think about stuff.
You're only meeting 4 times together, right? I think.
Right, and this is the last one.
Okay. Well, what an honor to join you for your last class.
I know, right? I like Kendall's background. She's at the Coliseum. Yeah, hold on just a minute, guys. I'll be right back. The important question, have you fed your dog yet? We have 4 dogs in the house. And it's important to know which one has been fed because the other 3 just arrived. Okay. So far we have 40 folks here. There might be a few more joining us late, but I'm going to go ahead and get started. And just a couple of quick announcements. I know that a number of you have already submitted the final, which is great. I haven't started looking at those yet, but I will tomorrow and Friday. But if you have questions about the final, I'll take those at the end of seminar tonight. And I have a few comments to make after Kate's finished, but I'm going to let her start. It's 5:30. She probably wants to get home, or she is home. She probably wants to get to the rest of her life and not her work life. So Kate Bergey, is it a hard G, Bergey?
You got it. Yep, exactly.
Is with us from University Career Center, which used to be Career and Academic Planning. And as you saw in my announcement earlier, she is here to talk about the interview process, a little bit about the upcoming virtual career not student teaching, but teacher fair for jobs. But I don't know that she knows that many details, but she's going to share what she has. Okay, so I hope you brought your questions for her, and then she'll have a PowerPoint that she'll share as well. So I'm going to turn things over to Kate.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks, Holly.
Yep.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to meet you. I know that you're in this is probably your last class of your fall semester, since we're right up at the evening of the final day of classes. So I hope that you all are hanging in there at the end of the semester here. I've actually structured the presentation around kind of job search preparation broadly and tried to break down some different steps of what you all can be working on over winter break. And kind of how to best step into the spring semester. So yes, as Holly mentioned, I work in our University Career Center. I serve as a liaison to the College of Education and started in that role this last summer. So I'm really excited to meet with you all and just talk about sort of things that you can be doing to be proactive in your job search. So if you have, as I go through, please put questions in the chat. I might ask for you, Holly, to just unmute yourself and kind of interrupt me as I go if there's things that I can't always see when I'm doing the PowerPoint, and we'll kind of go from there. So again, I want this to be as useful as possible for you all, so please ask questions as we go. So let me share my screen with you, and again, you'll get a copy of this PowerPoint afterward. If you do have a sheet of paper and a pen, it would be helpful to have that out for any notes you want to take. And I also have a couple kind of reflective activities at the beginning here that you might want to jot a few things down as well. So let's jump in. Basically, the 5 things that I want you to be thinking about with your job search process, at least at this point in time, are stepping back and taking a big picture kind of aerial view of reflecting on what you're looking for. The reason I want to start with that is because it can be so easy to just jump into all the details of working on your resume or starting to look for applications and applying. And I really encourage you to not skip over step 1, but actually spend some good time over winter break when you're not in the thick of classes doing that. I'm going to give you all a few job search strategies. There's probably plenty of others you can be utilizing, but I want to at least talk through a couple. And then I'll give you some really quick tips for resume and interview skills, and talk about some resources, including our upcoming virtual teacher recruitment day. So that's where we're headed today. So the first part of the process that I encourage you to be thinking about is, what is your why for teaching? So we're going to watch a really short video by Simon Sinek. He focuses a lot on understanding your why, and not just what you do or how you do it, but why you're choosing to do teaching, for example. So you can sit back and watch this 3-minute video with me, and we'll kind of go from there. And make sure I've got closed captions on here. Turn up the volume. All right, here we go.
Years ago, I made a discovery, and this discovery profoundly changed my view on how I thought the world worked, and it even profoundly changed the way in which I operated it. As it turns out, there's a pattern. As it turns out, all the great and inspiring leaders and organizations in the world, whether it's Apple or Martin Luther King or the Wright brothers, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way, and it's the complete opposite to everyone else. All I did was codify it. And it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do, 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean, what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And why should anyone care? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done. That's how most sales is done. And that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do. We say how we're different or how we better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You're ready to buy a computer from me. All I did was reverse the order of the information. What it proves to us is that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat screen TVs. They've been making flat screen monitors for years. Nobody bought one.
All right. So I know he talks fast. But I think part of what I want you all to be thinking about now is kind of your why statement. I think, again, this can be communicated in a variety of ways. Paying attention both to, I know some of what he talked about was selling, right, and buying, which I'm in education too. That's not what draws me into education. But the idea of you all going into your job search is you do need to sort of communicate or prove to potential employers why you're the best fit for a role. And so being able to clearly articulate why you're doing teaching and not just the how, I think can be a really compelling thing. And this is something you can incorporate into your cover letter, into interviews and things like that. And I think it also goes the other way. You're going to be interviewing school districts to see if it's going to be a good fit for you and that's a place you want to work. And so paying attention to a school that talks about why they're in or why they're committed to education or why they exist as a school is something to sort of do some research on or to talk to people about as well. So I'm going to be quiet for just a second and give you all just a moment to think about these questions listed on the screen. What's your cause? What's your purpose? If you need some way of structuring this, you can start with something like to, and then your contribution that you want to make so that, and some kind of impact. So I'll give you an example just to kind of get us started. My why statement is kind of a work in progress, but part of what I've developed so far is to build relationships so that people can reach their full potential. And so for me, how I'm doing that is through my work in University Career Center with presentations and connecting with faculty and students and one-on-one appointments. But my why is bigger than that. And so I'll give you just a moment to kind of think about this for yourself. And then if a couple of you would be willing to put it in the chat so that we can see some different ideas, I think you'll feel hopefully inspired by some of what you all develop, even though it's just a draft. So I'll look at my clock here. I'll give you all about 2 minutes to work on that and mute myself for just a moment. Again, as you're working on these, if you've got something that you're willing to share, just drop it in the chat so others of your classmates can kind of see what you're developing and might generate other ideas as well. I'm just going to read out a couple of these while they're coming in. To build community so everyone has a safe place to be themselves. To teach so students can learn and have passion for learning. To help a child reach their full potential so they can go out and make their own contributions in the world. To welcome in all students in the classroom so they feel comfortable in the learning environment. To show compassion and kindness to every child so they bring that with them and spread it throughout the world. To make a positive impact on each child so they can spread positivity and influence others that they meet in their lives. To be support for students so they can reach their full potential. To build confidence and resiliency and growth mindset in students by providing a safe and welcoming environment. Well, I hope that inspires you at the end of a really long semester. And so I encourage you to, I know this is a very short amount of time to be thinking about this, but I think it's a compelling way to have this written down somewhere, keep it at the forefront as you're going through the job search process, and come back to it as you're evaluating options in terms of different jobs that you're thinking about. Will this help you reach your why statement and keep that kind of central? So the next part that I want you to spend just a little bit of time thinking about is clarifying. So I encourage you to draw a bullseye on your sheet of paper or Post-it note or whatever you have. It might look something like what's on the screen, or you can create in a different kind of shape if you want. But the idea is I want you to think about what you're aiming for. When you think about entering your job search process, my understanding is all of you are graduating in May, or maybe some in December too, but graduation's on the horizon. And so I want you to think about what is it that you're aiming for in the middle of your bullseye, or your kind of ideal scenario of what you'd be doing after graduation. So what are the factors that are most important to you? You can't prioritize everything in life. There's got to be trade-offs. And so is moving back to your home area the utmost importance? And you can be flexible on whether you're working in a private school or a public school. Is working in elementary school sort of your non-negotiable, but you're willing to move anywhere within Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York, whatever. Do you definitely want to be working in an inner city, and that's kind of your non-negotiable? So think about what's kind of your non-negotiable in the center, and then what are you willing to negotiate, and put that kind of on the outside rings. And then I also want you to put on the outside of your bullseye some of the pressures that might be affecting your decision-making. Could be people, other factors, but I want you to kind of identify those three different points. So what's most important to you? What are you willing to negotiate on? And what pressures are affecting your job search process? I'm making you all work and think hard in your last class. Once someone's ready to share, I'm just going to ask for a couple volunteers to kind of walk us through what they've written down for their bullseye. So if someone happens to be ready now, feel free to unmute yourself and you can kind of talk us through these 3 different parts, but I'll give you just a little bit more time, but I'll just open it up. If someone does happen to be ready, feel free to jump in. Otherwise, I might see Holly. If no one offers, you can always call on someone. Or I can, however you want to do it.
I don't think Holly would do that.
It looked like Elizabeth had both her hands up.
I can't see people because of my screen sharing, so.
She's unmute yourself, Elizabeth. She's talking. I'm asking her to unmute. Oh, now she's looking. Elizabeth, do you want to share? Hello?
I can share, Holly, while we wait for Elizabeth.
Go ahead, Erin.
Okay. Okay, so right in the center of mine is I actually want to work at a specific school, which is the one in my neighborhood, because I'm a mom of 3 and I still have 1 kid that goes there. So that would just be my most ideal. And another thing that would be my most ideal is, I think, working K through 2, even 1 through 1st or 2nd grade would probably be my ideal. But when I move out from that, I would obviously spread that out for pre-K to 3rd. I would absolutely, that's what I'll be certified for. So, and I would work at Harrisonburg City schools, any of those elementary schools, or preferably something not too far from home, just because I am a mom and I have a family to be there for. And then in my biggest circle, the pressures affecting my decisions obviously are my kids and family is kind of the biggest thing, and the thing that has me tied, here, obviously. And also, just would there even be availabilities at the school that I want to work at, or, that really has a little bit to do with me, but a lot not to do with me. So I just have to keep those in consideration.
Yeah, that's a great example, Erin. And again, these are so individual, like everyone's job search and these different factors and criteria are going to be different. So identifying those for yourself and naming them can help to just evaluate different options that are coming your way. Can we get maybe one more person to share?
I can share, sorry.
You're good.
Okay.
So this is like, I feel kind of silly sharing, but I genuinely just would love to have a job and would love to be in a place that pays teachers at least what I think that they should be paid. And I think that I also am engaged, so I'm going to be marrying someone who lives in a very specific place where he still has one more year of his job commitment. And so that feels a little bit scary because I do feel like I have to look for that location. But there are counties surrounding that. And I think that that is definitely a pressure that I'm feeling. But I am willing to negotiate on grades, or I would work outside of the county that he lives in. But I think that feels like a really big pressure right now, because before we were engaged or even dating, I thought that I could teach anywhere, and I still can. It's not like a burden. It just is a little bit of a different situation now.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got another person to think about beyond just what you want to do. So that definitely is a big factor. And I encourage you too, Elizabeth, maybe you have a number in your head, but when you say something like what teachers deserve or should be paid, clarifying what that looks like for you or what that means specifically can help, again, to evaluate options as you're seeing the benefits listed on the website and whether you feel like that's, fair for the work you're going to be putting in or not. So I hope this is at least these two different things. Maybe one of them resonated with you more than the other, but as you have more time and capacity, hopefully over the winter break, I encourage you to come back to some of these bigger picture questions to kind of help evaluate and reflect as you're going through your job search. So I'm going to jump from this into strategies specifically. So let's say you kind of know what's in your center of your bullseye and what you're aiming for. What are some ways that you can hopefully find those opportunities? So I'm going to do a little back and forth of telling you about a few things, and then I'll demonstrate as well. Hopefully by now, some of you have heard of Handshake. If you haven't, feel free to get out your phones and scan this QR code to be able to figure out how to get logged on to Handshake. You'll be using your JMU email address and password to get logged in. But Handshake is essentially our job and internship search platform. And so we've got districts and companies and employers that are looking to hire JMU students and posting jobs available to students on this platform. So if you're not in Handshake yet, I really encourage you to get started with it. Whoops. Let me go back here. Oh, brother. How do I get out of there? There we go. Sorry. So I'm going to just show you what Handshake looks like from the student side. So if you go, each of you, again, should have a profile that you can create in Handshake. And the advantage of doing this is that kind of like Spotify or other things where it will start kind of curating songs that you might be interested in listening to based on what's listed in your profile. When you show up on Handshake, things will pop into your feed that are more relevant for what you're looking for. So if you can go in and add in your education, including bachelor's and master's, and if you have that, and then any kind of work experience. So for you all, adding practicum, student teaching experiences in here, a lot of the information you should be able to just pull from your resume. And then you can also add in projects as well. So again, the more you fill this out, the more that you'll be able to kind of mesh things up with what's coming through your feed and whatnot. The other thing is if you're interested in coming to our virtual teacher recruitment day, one of the major changes is that employers are expecting students to have their resume uploaded onto Handshake beforehand. And so it's really important that you're getting your resume in order, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, and that you're uploading that into your profile here. So that's kind of one of the things to kind of keep in mind. So how you can use this for your job search is if you go over here to jobs, let's just type in, I was working with a student earlier today, and she was looking for elementary special education teaching job. So you can use this search bar over here. You'll see it went from thousands of jobs, and I should say all these jobs and employers are vetted through our office. So we've got people behind the scenes that are approving them so that they're legitimate, and you don't kind of have to worry about that part of it. It's pretty easy to use. So you'll see each of the applications, or rather each of the job postings will look a little bit different, but they should have pretty similar information. You'll see the deadline of when they're expecting to have applications, how you can apply right here. It will tell you what they're looking for in terms of the qualifications or preferences and kind of experience that you need, so you can see if you would make a good fit. And then the other thing that's nice is you can follow certain school districts. So for example, I mean, Erin was talking about wanting to work in the Harrisonburg public schools, so you could follow them on Handshake, and then you would get notified about jobs as they're available in that way. You can also look at the whole school profile. So if you're kind of open to different schools and you don't know a lot about them, this is another way you can kind of do some research. So a couple like time-saving tips that I'd have for you, one would be to flag jobs that you're interested in, so that when you log into Handshake, you can just go over to your saved jobs and they'll be listed there. The other thing you can do is a saved search. So for example, if you're open to high school teaching, but you have a specific, or let's say you want to be a math teacher at the high school level, but you're open to the location or have a state that you want to work in, you could type that in and create some different searches. So what you can do is save your search, and it will create a job alert for you. And when you go into edit your notifications, you can decide if you want to receive alerts daily or weekly, and the method that you would get notified. And how this is helpful is that you don't have to log into Handshake then every time. It's going to let you know when new positions are posted that meet your criteria. So again, I think this can be kind of a useful way to save time overall. And again, your saved jobs are kind of up under this area here. While I'm on this screen, I'm going to go through kind of all the strategies at once, I think, and then I'll pause for some questions at that point. So the other thing that probably most of you know or are aware of is that you can also go directly to a district's website. So I just pulled up Harrisonburg, because that's where I live. And usually you'll find either jobs or a career tab over here. So if some of you have a specific district that you're interested in or really want to work in, you can find out a good amount of information on their website here by seeing things like recruitment fairs they have coming up, their salary scales, and then also when you click on job openings, I was looking at this one earlier today, and you can actually sign up for job alerts for specific districts. So again, Erin, I'll go back to you. If you know you're interested in working in the Harrisonburg City Public Schools, signing up for a job alert to know about new postings as they're available can be a good time-saving tip as well. A lot of these we're on the early side. I'm kind of talking about job preparation. So you'll see a lot of these jobs are maybe for this year yet, they could be like kind of partway through for December graduates. And there's going to be other things aside from teaching, like coaches and stuff in here too. But I think getting sort of yourself organized now over winter break with some of these job alerts can really save you time in the long run. The other thing that I'll just point out is all of you should be on our Canvas Student Teacher Career Resource website or Canvas site. And so if you haven't explored this yet, I definitely encourage you to hop on. I'm posting things in the announcements as they're coming up, but basically different employers are contacting me or Dara Hall, and she's forwarding things to me about fairs that are coming up, job postings available. And so besides Handshake and going to the website directly for a district, you can also go under our modules tab here. And I'm posting under the position announcements. I've got Virginia announcements here, kind of under positions, and then out-of-state opportunities listed down here. I've organized it by different career fairs that are coming through, which are almost all entirely remote this year because of the pandemic. So you'll see there's going to be even more of these happening in the spring, but I'll be posting those kind of as we go. And then there's also some really great resources down here about writing your resume, some examples, writing your cover letter, how to build a portfolio, interviewing tips, all of that. So there's a lot in this that hopefully will be useful for you that, again, if you haven't checked this out or had time yet, winter break would be a good time to kind of dive into this.
Hey, Kate.
Yeah.
Did they get an invite through email for that, or how did that work?
I sent the invitation. I mean, all of you are MAT students, right? Yeah. you all should be on the Canvas site. Can I get some like virtual thumbs ups either on your screen or, okay. I can't see very many people, but okay. Looks like many of you are. I actually just resent the invitation. There were just a couple students that hadn't accepted it yet, but all of you should be on there and able to see things. It's a good question, Holly. If you're not, again, I just sent the invite today again to those that hadn't accepted it yet. So checking out our Canvas site and just sort of paying attention to that and reach out to me if you have questions about what's on there. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention is this is kind of a broader strategy, and all of what I'm talking about really is trying to help you think about what I call kind of a multi-layered approach to your job search. So instead of just banking on one thing, trying different things can kind of sometimes help be most effective. So what I mean by that is, like, I wouldn't just do Handshake, or I wouldn't just go to one district's website, but kind of have a couple of tools in your toolbox, so to speak, that you can utilize. So another one that I'll just talk about broadly is sort of connecting with people. And so one of the things that hopefully you all are doing is having really good relationships with your cooperating teachers that you're doing practicum and internships with, student teaching and practicums with. And so letting them know about your search and where you're planning to look can be really useful. The other thing that can be helpful is connecting to folks on LinkedIn. And so this is a version of social media, but really a professional forum kind of for you all to get information and to connect with folks. And so I just wanted to show you one tool. Whether or not you use this in your job search now or kind of down the road, I think it's just helpful to kind of know about. So again, you can create a profile for yourself. It can be pretty similar to your Handshake one, and come up with sort of some taglines. You can do your professional photo, and then there's a bit of kind of information you can put in terms of your background, what you've been doing. And then you can add in sort of interactive components of pictures or lesson plans and things like that. The other cool thing about LinkedIn, I'll just scroll down here, is that people can endorse you for skills. So it's kind of like informal references. And so it's a way to kind of show that other people are giving you the thumbs up that that's something that you're good at. And you can also get more informal references from colleagues and other people as a way to kind of build out, again, it's not a formal reference letter, but a way that people can just talk about your work. So one of the really great tools, if you're ever kind of looking to make a change, again, this might be kind of down the road for some of you, but if you go under the alumni search engine here, there's a lot of different criteria you can look at. So you can do where they live, where they work, what they're doing, what they studied, and even sort of specific skills. But if we go back and just do something like high school math teacher, this will filter it from, I think it was over 100,000 JMU alumni to, specifically looking at, I think it was 600. So maybe you're interested in looking at the Henrico County Public Schools, for example. That will narrow it down even more. So these would be JMU alumni that graduated. And part of what I think can be helpful with this is you can see a couple different things. One, you can kind of see the direction that they took. So for example, this person, it looks like, started as a 4th grade teacher and then kind of moved into becoming a math specialist more recently. And so I think sometimes we get caught in thinking that we're going to have a more linear career path maybe, but there's a lot of different directions you can still go. Some people will end up in administration or whatnot. And so anyway, I encourage you to sort of use this as a way to explore career options. But the other thing you can do is contact someone. So if you're looking at moving sometimes or wanting to move to a different district but don't know very many people, connecting with JMU alumni can be a great tool for that. So you can click connect, or sometimes under their contact info, they'll have an email address that you could reach out to them. And so that's exactly what this LinkedIn kind of format is for you to be able to connect in this way to other alumni. So that's a really quick overview, but hopefully gives you kind of at least a snapshot of how you can utilize it. So I'm going to pause there for just a second and see. Doesn't look like I have any questions in the chat right now, but do you all have any questions about the strategies I've been talking about? This could include Handshake. What else did I talk about? Canvas, LinkedIn, or going directly to a website for a school district. And I'll open it up, Holly. If there's anything you want to chime in or add, feel free as well. No pressure, but yeah.
I'll just say that while I don't use LinkedIn often, I feel like it's a great resource because I'm not really looking to move into a new position, but I think as you all are graduating and getting out in the workforce, it's probably something that may come in handy down the road, especially working with alumni connections. People love to hire JMU alums, and when they see you're an alum from JMU, it puts you at the top of the list, especially in education.
I see one question in the chat about how long you might have access to Handshake. It's a good question. I should know that. I do know that our office is serving alumni up to 2 years after you graduate. And so this can include helping you with your resume, cover letter, interviewing, finding jobs. And so you should have access at least up till that point. I would have to ask someone else to know if it's much longer than that, but it should at least get you through, you know, your initial job search, or maybe even a transition if you were to make a transition after that. When do most districts begin posting job openings? That's a good question. It varies. So I would say January, February, March is going to be at least a good chunk of districts will be asking current teachers if they're planning on returning and kind of their intentions for the next year. And so there'll be a wave kind of in that early spring time frame. But then there's also going to be some unexpected maybe retirements or people that aren't returning that will happen closer to the end of the year. So there's usually another kind of influx, although maybe a little bit smaller, kind of in the May and June timeframe.
And often, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go for it.
Most of you already probably know this, but often you'll get hired, but you won't know the grade level until later. And that happens a lot because contracts are still out, teachers haven't returned them, and there's a whole shuffle. So just know that that's a pretty common practice.
And that's
part of larger school districts like Fairfax County and that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's part of why I also wanted to talk about some of the things you can be doing now over winter break, because I know it can be kind of disempowering to just be waiting and waiting, but there's actually a lot you can be doing in terms of reflecting, like I said, and now this part, thinking about your strategies that you want to employ that are still active things with your job search that can require, you know, extra time, even if it's not actually clicking submit yet for an application. I see another question. When do we want to attend virtual job fairs if we're looking for a job next year? So, I mean, if you've got some really specific districts that you're wanting to apply for jobs, it can be helpful to go to their fairs at any point, really, as you have the opportunity to connect with people. Our big teacher recruitment day will happen March 4th. So there's over 50 employers that are registered for that. And so that's definitely one that I would plan on attending. And again, there's going to be a lot of districts that are there. But I would say kind of January, February, March is probably when you're going to see the most job fairs available for you to attend. Great questions. How long do you usually have between when a school offers you a job and when you need to accept? So I think that means like, how long is the timing for you to make a final decision, basically? That depends. I mean, yeah, it depends. That's something you can ask them about, kind of when they need to hear back from you by. That's a very reasonable question to ask. The biggest thing is to not keep searching once you've accepted. So it's unethical to continue to apply or search for jobs if you've already accepted a job someplace else. But yeah, it's very, it's okay to also say, like, let's say you got a job offer on a Monday and you get another job offer on a Wednesday. It's okay to say that to an employer, to say, I've actually got this other offer on the table at, Fairfax County Public School System. Can I have a couple extra days to decide, or something like that? You can decide if you want to share the specific name or not of the school. But Dina, does that answer your question? I'm kind of not giving you exactly a direct answer, but okay. Is there anything you want to add to that part, Holly? Okay. All right.
It does happen a lot, though. 2 offers at the same time, or waiting for an offer when you've already got one in hand. And how do I handle that? And I think just being honest. I think employers know that you're going to probably get multiple offers.
Yeah. And I'd also say that's why the bullseye activity that I was talking about, in terms of, like, as you're evaluating, I mean, you all are in high demand as teachers. And so as you're evaluating interviews that you're getting or offers on the table, knowing what you're really aiming for and staying clear about that, I think can be really helpful as well. And then I see another question. So for things like Handshake, LinkedIn, or maybe even your resume, when it asks about job experience and volunteering, how far back should you go? So I would say at this point, with you all having been in college and finishing your master's, it doesn't make sense to include high school at this point. Really, employers are just looking for college experience. So it doesn't really make sense to include something from high school. It doesn't mean you couldn't talk about that formative experience from high school in an interview if it made sense. But in terms of, like, these kind of professional documents or things you're putting forward, that's kind of my recommendation. And make sure that you're kind of keeping the experience in volunteering. It can be both teaching or other things, like maybe you lifeguarded for a period of time, but it was still children related, or volunteered with Big Brothers Big Sisters or things like that. Like, those are great things to include to show your kind of investment in youth beyond just the work itself. Okay, you all can keep putting questions in the chat. I'm going to jump back to my presentation here and share my screen with you again. So give me just a second to get set up. The last thing I'll just show you on my PowerPoint is on LinkedIn. They've got a lot of resources that you can use that will tell you about how to get started with a profile or what things to include. So I've got this in the PowerPoint that you all can go back to as well. So hopefully that's helpful. But if you also just type in Google kind of student profile, there's some really great things of kind of some quick steps that you can take with that. And then just some kind of last minute tips in terms of your strategies. So try to keep an open mind as much as you can. You never know exactly what might pop up down the road. And so I know it can be anxiety producing to kind of wait, but you all are kind of in the prime time over the next 5-6 months. And so just keep an open mind and sort of remember what's your non-negotiable in the center. It's also, this is not going to be the last time probably that you're job searching. And so being flexible and dealing with ambiguity is also a good life skill to kind of practice during your job search. And the last thing I would just say is remember that this is your search. So all of you are going to be going through this around the same time, but it's going to look different for each of you. So remember to kind of keep yourself centered and grounded on your own search, your own why that we've been talking about, and not getting too overly focused about your classmates or roommates or other things that are going through the search at the same time, because each of you are going to have different experiences with it.
Did you see the question from Michaela? I think we kind of touched on that Matilda, did we answer that for you? An appropriate amount of time to wait to decide to take an offer or not?
I mean, generally speaking, like they're probably not going to give you more than like a week or two usually. Yeah, that would be kind of generally speaking what I would say. But I think asking them sort of once, usually someone will call you or they'll give you an offer, and then asking sort of when are you hoping to hear back from me by is a very appropriate question, so you know what they're expecting. Hopefully that answers it.
Good, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to give you just some nuts and bolts a little bit. Again, some of this you can find also within our Canvas site, but my third sort of step or recommendation is making sure your resume is in kind of tip-top shape going into the spring. So working on this over winter break could be a good thing. And some of you I might have already talked with about some of this, so I'm keeping this part kind of short in case if I've talked with some of you before. But just remembering what employers are looking for. So you all have a wealth of teaching experience that you're leaving with in terms of your student teaching and practicum. So that really should be at the forefront after you've got your education on your resume, really highlighting and taking the bulk of the real estate on your resume for explaining your teaching experience is important. Make sure that you're kind of emphasizing some of these other things. So if you've got a unique endorsement or skill set, that you've got that written on your resume somewhere. They'll know your communication skills through your strong writing, hopefully, and a cover letter, and also your interview. So as educators, it's really important to kind of put your best foot forward in those areas. And then also just having kind of strong references and letters of recommendation is something that they're definitely going to be looking for. From the recruiters I've talked with, they're looking really for that holistic package. So it's not necessarily just one thing or another, but kind of all of these things combined. So if you're unsure of how to include your education on your resume, I've just provided an example. From talking with Dara Hall, she's again emphasized a couple times of making sure you've got your professional licensure listed on there, because usually that's a specific requirement for districts. And so you don't want them to have to look for that information. So if you're unsure what your licensure area is, make sure you do the research now and get that squared away on your resume. Yeah, and I have it listed here, as you can see, where you've got JMU listed at the top, and then you've got the 2 different degrees, potentially listed as well. If you, yeah, so this is kind of an overall recommendation of how to do your education.
Just to clarify, the LED folks, your pre-K to 6th, right? And your Bachelor of Arts degree, your major was IDLS, and your minor was education. The early childhood MAT folks, you're pre-K to 3. That's all. Just want to say
And
that.
make sure you write out IDLS instead of using an acronym, because other people may or may not know what that is. But hopefully they do, but you don't want to assume. Thanks for clarifying that, Holly.
Sure.
So again, ask a faculty member if you're not sure. They'll help you kind of work through that.
If you forget, ask me. I'm happy to let you know.
Yeah. The other thing is thinking about how can you best tell your story through your resume and highlight the things that are most important that you want an employer to see. So I put down some headers, and what I mean by header is like kind of that bold area or a broad category that you'll want to be thinking about in your resume. So some of these are a little bit more specific. It might make sense for you to have just a student teaching experience category or just a practicum student teaching category. You might just say teaching experience, that's fine, but you have to put things in reverse chronological order. So your most recent thing needs to be at the top of that header. So if you've got, by having different organizational headers, it gives you more flexibility of moving experiences toward the top of your resume, essentially. Some of you might have done study abroad or volunteering, so you could have a separate category about international experience if you really want to highlight knowing how to work with students from different backgrounds, for example. Volunteer experience. I would encourage all of you to consider a skills category, so things like being proficient with Zoom or Microsoft Office or.
Yeah, I'd list all the technologies you've used in student teaching.
Absolutely.
Because there's so many, and some of you have experience with a number of them, depending on where you were. Definitely put those on there.
And they're going to be looking for that, especially this year because of, the pandemic. So thinking about the way, and I love kind of doing this part with students. So if you're unsure about how to organize your resume, come to my drop-in hours that I'll talk about a little bit later, and I'm happy to help you think creatively about this. The next thing, once you've kind of got things organized, you want to make sure that you're describing your experiences effectively. So I've got some strong action verbs, and this is basically where your bullet points. So you're going through and describing what you did. So you need to make sure if it's an experience you did in the past that you're using past tense, but if it's something you're currently doing, you'll use present tense, and try to vary up the action verbs that you're using. So I'll just give you an example here. This is a student teaching experience. So you'll see they've got the title that they had, the school that they were working at, the city, state, and the dates. So you want to make sure you've got a consistent format throughout. And then you'll notice that they started with an action verb. This was all past tense. So they used an action verb at the beginning of all of these. We don't use I kind of in resumes, it's more formal. And then you want to make sure that you're using as specific as you can be. So wherever you can quantify, or you'll see this person taught a unit on wonder and peer and facilitated peer teaching reading group. So it's talking about kind of both what they did and how they did it. And so as detailed as you can be with some of these major experiences like student teaching, kind of the better. And you'll see there's how many bullets here? 6, 7. So that's very appropriate for something like a student teaching experience. You might have some experiences where you have less. If it's a practicum or a shorter experience, that's fine too. But don't be afraid to kind of elaborate. And then some kind of quick reminders are, most of you will probably have about a 2-page resume based on all of your practicum and student teaching experiences. So make sure that if that is the case, you're kind of, again, adequately describing things. And if you do go on to a second page, you want to make sure you're filling it out. That's not just like a 1/4 of a page, but it's got some robust things in there. I tend to hear the flip side of students tending to be more modest. I mean, you don't want to over exaggerate, but you all carry a lot of responsibility as educators. And so don't underestimate kind of the things that you've done within your resume. What else haven't I talked about yet? Listing relevant things. So you're not necessarily going to be able to include everything you've done, but again, you want to be as comprehensive as you can. And then some just last tips are, as you all are submitting applications online, make sure you're saving your documents, whether it's a cover letter or a resume, as a PDF, so that the formatting doesn't get all weird if someone's opening it on a different computer. And then making sure that you have at least another person spell checking and looking at your resume and cover letter, because your eyes will probably have glared over because you will have looked at it so many times. So I'm happy to be that person, and I'm sure some of your classmates or faculty can also help with that as well.
There's 2 questions in the chat. Do employers still want cover letters, which I'm assuming they do?
They do.
You just mentioned that. And who should we ask for letters of recommendation?
Yeah, good question. So the cover letter, I'll just say, typically it will say to submit a cover letter within the application. If it doesn't, I'm still usually encouraging students to submit a cover letter, because it's your chance to express enthusiasm that you can't wait to apply or work for that school. So by taking that extra effort, it's really showing that you're taking the extra time. So if you have no idea how to write a cover letter, you can start with our Canvas site and our website, the University Career Center. You can also come to my drop-in hours or book an appointment with anyone in our office to just talk about the basics of how to write a strong cover letter. So you don't have to feel hopefully alone in that. In terms of references, you want to make sure, first of all, that people know that you're asking them to serve as a reference. I usually encourage students to ask something like, do you feel like you know me or my teaching experience well enough to be able to write a reference letter for me? So it's giving folks kind of an out if they don't either have the time for some reason or feel like they know you well enough. But having a variety of references. So again, it might say that they want, on the application, it might ask for a professional reference, which is usually referring to someone that you've worked for. So that could be a cooperating teacher or something like that. If they might ask for an academic reference, so that could be, you know, any number of your faculty members. So you just want to make sure that you're paying attention to the specific requests that they're making within the application. Holly, I'm sure you've served as a reference a number of times. Is there anything else that you would add to that part?
Yes. I don't always know your past experiences in practicum. So if you ask a professor and they agree, I always ask for a resume, and then I ask them to tell me, you know, what grade level they were placed in for their practicum and their student teaching. Because I can't keep all that straight. And that's always helpful to have that information.
Yeah, exactly. Sending your references to your resume and letting them know the different school districts, like if they're going to be listed on multiple applications, letting them know the different districts or keeping them updated through the process is much better than them getting a surprise email or a call from someone.
And it just depends on the school district. Sometimes they don't even require a letter anymore. They just want the reference to fill out a form.
Mm-hmm.
You know, check the bubbles.
Yeah, exactly. You might not actually have a formal letter, or sometimes they'll just ask for their contact information and they'll do maybe a phone call or something. So it varies a lot depending on, how their system is set up.
Yep.
Any other questions in the chat right now?
I don't see any others. There were some you had that I didn't see, so they might have directed them right to you.
Let me see.
I don't see any
All right.
going out to everyone.
Okay, let me look real quick. Someone we can send a resume to that will look over it. I think I talked about that already.
You're going to share your drop-in hours.
Yeah. Filling out is student teaching. Okay. When filling out an application, is student teaching considered our job experience or is it its own category? So yeah, I mean, if you look at resumes online, you'll see many people will just say experience or work experience. I really would encourage you to tailor your headings a little bit more to say teaching experience, or again, tell your story in a more compelling way. And so I would put that within kind of a separate category, whether you call it student teaching and you just put your student teaching experiences, or you lump together your practicum and student teaching experiences. I don't think that matters as much, but I would definitely have a teaching category listed on your resume. Whoops. Okay, I think I got everything. Let me go back. Okay, so the next thing to be thinking about is just practicing your interview skills. So again, many of you probably haven't had interviews yet for this next academic year in terms of applying to jobs, but what you can be doing is preparing and practicing a bit. So many of the things just to be thinking about is they're not just asking about your skills, but they're also trying to figure out, can we imagine working with you as a colleague and sitting in the staff lounge together, the faculty lounge together, having lunch and things like that. And they also want to know kind of the other parts of your skills and experience too, but you really are interviewing school districts just as much. Once you've gotten to that stage of the interview, it is a little bit more reciprocal and making sure that they're going to be a good fit for what you're looking for too. So one of the common things that you probably will be asked at some point is something like, tell me about yourself, or tell me about yourself as an educator. It could be a follow-up question might be, why are you interested in applying for this position? But you want to be thinking about kind of your elevator pitch, so to speak. And the idea behind this is that if you were to hop into an elevator with someone, you're probably not doing a lot of anyway right now, but if you're hopping in an elevator, you only have like 30 seconds until the next person's going to get off at the next floor. So like, what are your key things that you want to communicate to them in that short amount of time? And so this kind of gives you a format of what you can be thinking about, because it's sort of a tricky interview question when they ask, tell me about yourself. And so I gave you an example again that you can refer back to in the PowerPoint. And we really want to be focusing on kind of your area of education and maybe your most recent experience where you were student teaching, and kind of where you're looking to go down the road. So as much as you can kind of succinctly talk about that, the better for some of the interview preparation you can do. The other thing that our website has a lot of, I'm giving you all like a very quick snapshots of a lot of things, but hopefully at least like it's your wheels turning and you can kind of dive into this deeper. I've got a whole interviewing and a whole separate resume PowerPoint presentation that's also listed on our Canvas site, so you can always go back to those. But I did just want to mention the STAR method because it's not uncommon once you get into that interview stage for them to ask you behavioral questions. And what we mean by that, these would be questions like, tell me about a time that you planned a lesson for your students and it didn't go the way that you expected. You know, how did you respond? Or tell me about a time when you were virtually teaching and, you know, a couple of your students were really hard to ensure that they were like learning and, you know, present in your classes and things like that. You know, how did you respond in that situation? So the STAR method is a way to kind of break that down and talk about the context of the situation, the specific steps that you took, and or any tasks that you had, and then the outcome at the end. So it can be a way to kind of structure the response a little bit more. And so part of, I mentioned this kind of as a method. Again, we've got a lot listed on our website about how you can break this down a bit. But the other thing I really encourage you to think about with your interviewing are the stories you want to tell. So I'm sure you all have students that stand out into your mind, maybe for better or worse sometimes, but students that have made an impact on you, or you're really proud of how you worked with them as a teacher. And those are the kinds of things you want to pull into your interview. So you want to think about like, what are those top 7 or 8 or 10 stories that you really want to communicate in an interview? These examples, basically. So regardless of the question that someone asks, you can pull in Cynthia and your work with her on a one-on-one setting as a special ed teacher to help her achieve X, Y, or Z. So I encourage you to think about those, you know, personal examples that you can use within sort of either behavioral questions like this or just more broadly in your interviewing. And then the really practical thing that I'll encourage you to do is to pull up Interview Stream. So Interview Stream is available through our website. All of you can just log in, creating a username and password. And part of why I'm really advocating for students to use this is because it's highly likely that many of you will have virtual interviews this next spring, more so than we've ever seen probably. And so practicing with a video camera, it's not always something that comes easy, even though we're all on our screens all the time. It's totally different when you're in an interview. And so practicing with Interview Stream can be really great. You can log on and then conduct an interview with that button. You can customize an interview. The created for me is if a faculty member or someone would have assigned it to you, but you can do the custom interview. And then there's a bank of thousands of questions. And so you can search for education questions, for example, or general questions and drag them over here. So we've got a couple like, what experience do you have teaching diverse populations, or how do you handle classroom discipline? And then you just click on Start My Interview and a person will pop up and ask you the question. By a person, I mean it's pre-recorded, so it's not someone live, but it will record your interview after you go through all these questions, and then you can watch yourself afterward. So part of why this is really useful is it will count things like your filler words, how often you're using things such as or like, what you're doing with your hands, if you're effectively looking up at the camera instead of down at your notes or the screen. And so using this a couple times to get your jitter out, or your jitters out with virtual interviewing, I think can be really useful. And it's a little less intimidating maybe than having, you can decide if you want to have, you know, a friend or a family member do this instead in person, that's fine. But I think the practice with a virtual setting can be really useful just to give you more confidence with it. So that kind of leads me into my tips just with virtual interviewing. You have to take it as seriously as you would for an in-person interview, even if it's shorter or done by camera. So be thinking about how you're still dressing head to toe. dressing for success, you know? So make sure that you're not, wearing like really casual pants, for example, with a blazer on top. You want to kind of do the whole thing in case if you have an interruption and need to stand up or something like that. Make sure that you're familiar with the technology that you're going to be using of some kind. And part of that also entails thinking about your lighting, checking the video angle. So for example, tonight I have kind of terrible overhead lighting once it gets dark. So I pulled in a lamp from my from the guest bedroom so that hopefully you all can see my face better. So you want to make sure the lighting is, you know, not that you're backlit, but you've got lighting in the front so you can see people well. Minimizing background noise and interruptions. So in the spring semester, if any of you don't feel comfortable with having reliable Wi-Fi with where you are, but you can come to campus, our office actually has interview rooms that you can reserve. So I'll make a note of this, Holly. I'll follow up with you with the form that students would need to fill out for this. And you need to submit it, I think 1 or 2 business days before your interview. But if any of you need a quiet space, or again, you're not sure about your Wi-Fi for an interview you have coming up, you can always come to our office in the Student Success Center to conduct your interview instead, and just bring your computer or whatnot. And then sometimes they might ask for your resume or potentially a portfolio. So just having that available in the background of your computer can also be helpful, just in case if they ask about it. I think I have one more slide with this, and then I'll pause for questions again. So just, again, be thinking about the stories you want to tell. I've got a list of some of the things that you're likely to get asked about. Things like parents, classroom management, teaching virtually, culturally responsive teaching, the way that you're setting up your classroom, whether that's in person or virtually. So thinking about some of the stories or examples you pull in for each of these different categories could be kind of a helpful way to start preparing for some of the interview questions you might get.
They might also ask about differentiation, and they might ask you to share how you would teach reading or literacy in general.
Yes, okay, that was my last slide with interviewing. I don't see any questions in the chat. Do you all have anything that you're wondering about related to interviewing? So how late does your class go, Holly? I realize I'm over 6:30 already.
We have been ending around 7. So
Okay.
I just need a little bit of time at the end. You're good. You're just a little over. You're fine.
Okay.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you have any tips about, like, when you're in the interview and they ask you a question, what if you kind of blank, what if you kind of blank out and you have no idea what to say? Do you have any tips there, like how to handle that?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that, Erin. So a couple things that come to mind. One, it's completely fine if you need a little extra time, or if it's a 2-part question, to just say, that's a great question. Can you repeat that for me? It's better for you to ask for them to repeat the question than to go on a tangent, or if you just need a little extra think time while they're repeating the question. So that's kind of one strategy you can try. It's also acceptable to just say, that's a great question. Give me just a second to think about that. And to just breathe, like try to get some oxygen to your brain, to just breathe a couple breaths and kind of hope for the best that something will come to mind. Those are like the first 2 things that are coming to mind. I don't know how helpful that is, but again, I think having some of those stories, like I've been talking about, in your back pocket might be able to help you creatively link someone that comes to mind to the question that they've asked, even if it's a little bit more loose. You can't prepare for every question they're going to ask. There's going to be something that's surprising to you. So I think that's why I encourage students to go more of the route of thinking about the stories you want to tell and the examples you want to give, so that you're kind of ready with different things that you can pull in regardless of what they ask. During an interview, is it appropriate to ask what kind of curriculum they use? Absolutely. So I didn't talk about this, but you'll definitely want to come prepared with 5 or more questions that you'd like to ask them about. So that would be a great question to ask. You might also ask, what does your training or onboarding or ongoing professional development look like for teachers? A number of those types of things. The interview is not the time to ask about the salary, although you also can find a lot of that out on their website anyway. But it is a great time to ask more about kind of the things you want to learn about their classroom environment or their school. Okay, folks, I'm going to move into kind of our last resource components, and then feel free to ask any other questions. So you've got a couple different things that you can kind of utilize here for resources. The first thing would be one-on-one appointments. So you can book those, again, with myself or anyone in our office through Handshake that I showed you tonight. There's a little tab that says Career Center, and then you can look for available appointments. We will be closed for the 2 weeks that JMU is closed around the holidays, but we'll be available during winter break and have hours available. So if you want us to review your resume, cover letter, talk about interviewing, that's great. I also will have virtual office hours, again, starting around the start of classes on Wednesdays from 3 to 5. So those you can find, I'll show you, I've got a QR code in a couple slides, but you can just pop into my Zoom room for 10 minutes, or as long as no one's waiting longer, to ask a quick question if you'd like. There's also some online resources. So I've talked about our Canvas site and our website, our University Career Center website, but there's also the AAEE Job Search Handbook for Educators. This might have gotten buried in the beginning of the semester. It looks like, my paper copy looks like this, but it comes out every year, and it provides some really good information just about kind of tips and kind of strategies for preparing for your job search. And so all of you should have access to that electronically. If you haven't logged into it yet, you can just search your email and you should be able to hopefully find information on that. And then the last 2 programs are, we're going to be hosting a resume review just for you all as College of Ed students on Thursday, February 4th from 3:30 to 5:30. So you're welcome to mark your calendars now. I haven't talked this much today, apparently. My voice is getting tired. But if you want to come to that drop-in resume review, there'll be more information as well. It's helping you to prepare for the virtual teacher recruitment day that is going to come up in March. And I'll post more information in our Canvas site about both of those things as well. So let me just explain a little bit about Virtual Teacher Recruitment Day, and then I'll wrap up. Essentially, this happens every March. It's really geared toward you all as graduating students. This is what it looks like on Handshake. And I actually might let me actually just go straight to the website so I can show you. So if you go back to Handshake and go, oh dear. See if that worked. Perfect. Okay, so if you go under events here, and then career fair, if you scroll down, you'll find our Virtual Teacher Recruitment Day. So I'd recommend flagging that so that it kind of pops up right away. And you'll see, basically it's structured where it will be on Handshake in terms of that's how you will access it. You'll register through Handshake, and then all the technology will be through Handshake as well. The fair itself will be from 10 to 12 on this day. And there's going to be information sessions that are offered by different school districts that are 30 minutes, and also one-on-one sessions that are 10 minutes. Employers are still setting up those schedules. And so you'll see over here, registration is currently closed, and it actually won't be open to students until 2 weeks before the fair. So the things you can be doing now, and I'll back up very briefly, there are basically, after the virtual fair, employers are going to have the chance to offer you to join them for a virtual interview in the afternoon. And so it's a great chance, again, to kind of learn about job opportunities and to potentially interview. This is our first time doing it virtual, but we've done a lot of different career fairs this fall virtually as well. You'll see we have over 50 employers that are coming. So what you can be doing now is looking at those employers that are showing up. You can follow them on Handshake, and then also, by clicking on them, you can see the different jobs that they're going to be having available. Some of them are working on setting up their sessions now too. So it's going to be a really great way to kind of hopefully get a bulk of kind of folks in one space, so to speak. But you do need to make sure, again, to register. And once you register in February, you actually have to then go in and create your schedule. So you'll have to take that extra step of signing up for the one-on-one sessions or the group sessions. And I'm encouraging students to sign up for those sessions so that you can hopefully have some virtual interviews in the afternoon as well. The last thing that I was just going to show you all is, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this just for sake of time, but we've got some really great resources. So if you go back into this page or this PowerPoint, you'll see we've got a student guide, so kind of helping you prepare for TRD. There's a short video about registration. I haven't updated this one yet for TRD, but you can see what it entails for the fall fairs. And then Handshake also has a guide of how to help prepare for virtual fairs. So those are some things that you can kind of be doing now as well. And then the last things I have are just, this is a QR code that you can access if you're looking for my drop-in hours and information about that. I think that's it that I have. So let me stop sharing my screen here, and I'll just open it up for just a quick second to see if there's any questions before I log off. I see one question about, we've been told previously to bring a binder with our resume, lesson plans to the interview. How should we prepare this in a virtual interview setting? Great question. So you can still prepare a portfolio. It's going to look different because, you'd need to basically create a website. On our Canvas site, there's a whole module about creating an online portfolio. And so it walks you through kind of the different things to include. And so I would encourage you as a starting place to go to the Canvas site and look at that module on building a portfolio. I don't have a good sense of how many districts with changing their recruiting to be virtual are going to ask for that this spring, but if you have time, it might not hurt to at least have some of those things in one central place. And how does it work whenever we have practicum hours? I'm not sure I understand what that means. Is Brittany still on?
Yeah, she's there.
That was more directed to if we have practicum hours during the virtual fair or during that period of time, how do we set up or do that as well as our hours?
Are you talking about the virtual teacher recruitment day or just fairs in general?
Both.
Yeah.
What you can do is ask your teacher if you can make that day up another day. That's what folks have done in the past.
We originally chose March 4th because it was supposed to be a day between that I think most of you were supposed to have off originally between placements, according to what Daryl Hall told me. Things have been changing dynamically with schedules and things. So I have no idea if that's actually going to stay true for the spring for your schedules, but the hope was that you weren't going to have to take time off, but it was going to be sort of one of those days in between practicum placements. Yeah.
I'm just looking. Yeah, they may not have it off. So I'm sure a teacher should allow you with enough notice to make your practicum day up on another day. So when do you make it up? Probably be during exam week. Mm-hmm. Or if there's a day when you don't have classes, you could go. But I doubt there's usually not a day like that. Maybe a Friday. Yeah.
Well, I want to be respectful of your time, Holly, too. I know you have some things to wrap up. But my email is in the PowerPoint as well. Holly will send that your way at some point. So if there's anything I can do to support you all through your job search, know that I'm cheering you on, our whole offices. So just reach out, as you have questions and go through things.
Thank you, Kate, so much. It was a lot of information. I'll post the PowerPoint in an announcement on Canvas for everyone.
Sounds great.
And this has been recorded. If you want to watch it again, it's in your Zoom tab under cloud recordings.
That's great. Thank you all so much. Hope you have a restful break and good luck finishing up the semester.
Thanks, Kate.
All right, take care,
Thank you,
everyone.
Kate.
Wow, so that was a lot of information, but I hope it wasn't too overwhelming. I know it's the last week of classes and you're wrapping up final projects for this semester. Probably not so much thinking about the springtime, but you'll have this information and you'll be able to save that PowerPoint. And it'll be something to think about. I don't know how much over winter break you want to spend doing that, but definitely into the spring semester. And so first of all, I don't want to spend a lot of time answering questions about the final in our last few minutes, but if there are any general questions about it, I'm happy to answer a few. And then if you just want to reach out to me individually, you can text me or email me. There've been about 15 people that have submitted their finals so far. So I have not looked at them all real closely, but the ones that I have looked at, I've just done a quick look at. People have done a really nice job writing the narrative and then uploading things from student teaching to support what they're saying, like a newsletter or like a virtual field trip or a parent night or something like that. Those are really helpful.
Holly, I have a quick question.
Okay.
So in the case where we are including things from student teaching, like that documentation, would we just say, like in the text, would we say refer to Appendix A or something like that?
You don't have to be that formal with it.
Okay.
What people have done is just put a text box next to the document and written about it, like in Word, or you can do it, either way is whatever's most helpful to you.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? So lastly, then, I'm just going to share quickly that I'm excited to see some of you in creativity in March. It's a long way off. Maybe by then we'll have vaccinations and maybe we'll actually be able to be in person. That would be awesome. But Erin Morgan has survived creativity online. And so it can be done if it has to be online because she's finishing that up this semester. Some of you are, the early childhood MAT folks are graduating in December. We should give them a little applause. There's a few of them in this section. The rest of you, I know that it feels weird to be coming back to classes at JMU after student teaching. You feel like you should be done. And I get that every spring. But what I will tell you is you are bringing those experiences into the classroom. Every one of us at JMU who teach in the spring and teach this group have said every semester, this group was beyond a doubt more engaged, had more to give and more to share, and made the semester so much more rewarding because you bring those real experiences back with you. And really, that's what a master's degree is all about, right? You bring your experiences with you, and that just enriches the whole experience, I think. So I hope you go into it with that type of outlook, not as something, one more thing you have to do. And I'm sure that it will be different. Practicum may be a little odd, but if you're not feeling like you're getting used or being able to help your teacher out as much as you'd like, remind them that you did this last semester and you rocked it. And you can take a small group or you can plan a literacy group or math or whatever. I'm sure, I have a feeling this semester coming up in the spring, especially virtual, that they're going to hopefully use you more than ever before. So I just wanted to say that to you all. And that's about it. That's all I have. So thanks for being here. We didn't get to really build a lot of community over 4 seminars, but I still feel like I know you through your work online. And I wish you all a great break. And let me know if you have any questions. So that's it.
Thank you, Holly.
You're welcome.
Thank
Thank
you.
all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Holly.
Yep.
Thank you.
Peace. See you all.
Do you mind if I ask like a super quick question
Sure, go ahead.
about the final? I just knew it
Yeah.
wasn't relevant to everyone else.
Sure.
But Bridget and I were talking earlier in the week, and we were just wondering if the artifacts needed to be stuff that we specifically did, or maybe if it was like a school-wide thing.
Yeah, it can be a school-wide thing.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's all I had.
Okay. All
Thank
right.
you so much.
You're welcome. Macy, did you have a question? She's still on.
I have a question about
Okay,
the
Bridget, go.
So if some of them are on Seesaw or another LMS, do you want me to screenshot it and
Yeah.
up?
I think that's what people have done, and they've embedded them in, and then
Okay, if
they
it's not an
wrote
actual
over-
document?
yeah, they wrote over to the side how it's supported. What?
Okay,
Yeah.
because I knew for when I was doing second grade in my first placement, I sent a message to all the parents about online manipulatives that they could use at home with their students. So I didn't know if maybe taking a screenshot
Yeah,
of that
that's
communication would be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
That'll
you.
work. Okay, is that it? All right.
Yep,
Bye-bye.
that's it. I